Jussie Smollett was not the first phony hate crime in this country and likely won't be the last. Fake hate crimes, in fact, have become routine here. They become routine because our credulous media rushes to believe them, all of them. They want to believe that America is a hateful, intolerant country despite the evidence. Last week, for example, a sixth-grade girl at a Christian school in the state of Virginia claimed that 3 boys attacked her at recess. Immediately, this became a national news story, and the press hurried to racialize it, as they do so much. Most people don't spend their lives thinking about race. The media does. The New York Times wrote this headline, quote, "Black Virginia girl says white classmates cut her dreadlocks on playground." The Times knows that America is a hateful country. They believe this with zero evidence. So they're eager to tout any story that backs up that storyline. It's also true that the second lady, Karen Pence, sometimes teaches at that school in Virginia. And so the story was also used to tar her by association.
A 12-year-old African-American girl said 3 white classmates pinned her down and cut her dreadlocks. The wife of the vice president, Mike Pence, she teaches there.
A black 6th grader says she was pinned down by white classmates who cut her hair.
A 12-year-old Virginia girl says she is traumatized after 3 of her white classmates pinned her down and cut some of her dreadlocks off. Vice President Mike Pence's wife, Karen Pence, teaches art part-time at Emmanuel.
So after whipping up even more suspicion and race hatred, the press found today that this, like almost every other hate crime that's made headlines in recent years, was fake. Yesterday, the girl's family admitted the allegations were untrue, and they apologized. Good for them. But we have far less sympathy for the media in all this. This isn't a one-off incident. Of course, it's a pattern. They did it after the 2016 election. They did it with the Covington Catholic boys. They did it this week. Over and over and over again. The press, in fact, abets hate crimes, because that's exactly what these are. They're hate crimes. They're not false accusations or hoaxes. They're deliberate efforts to defame an entire group of people, to arouse hate against them. And the press abets this. They drive it. They do it over and over and over. And when they're caught feeding a lie, they pretend it never happened. They face no consequences, and they do it again just weeks later. It's not a victimless crime. All of us are the victims of this. It hurts the country. It makes people hate each other. It divides them on the basis of skin color, which is the worst way to divide people. Robbie Suave is an associate editor at Reason and author of Panic Attack, Young Radicals in the Age of Trump, and he joins us tonight. Robbie, let me just ask you, since you are, I think, the living expert on fake hate crimes, why they follow an unchanging pattern. It never changes. Why?
The media seizes on these things the second they hear about them without any care to actually properly investigate them, because they want to believe this narrative about America, right? That it's the most hateful place that's ever existed, that Trump has caused it. It fits exactly with their political bias. So they don't even, I think, imagine sometimes that these things could be made up, even though, as you pointed out, a lot of times they are. I mean, in this case, who thinks to themselves, you know, a really awful incident between a bunch of kids, but it should be turned into national news? Why? Who says, let's get this little girl in front of a camera and inflame the entire nation about racial hatred when something like this happens? I mean, and they put her in a position where, you know, kids lie, kids screw up, right? And they're supposed to be able to learn that's wrong and to be punished with you know, in proportion to what happened, maybe a suspension or something, and then they learn from that and they get on with their lives. But because you decided this girl should be on television talking about this, like, now she's going to be subjected to all this, like, national shame. It's terrible. Who thinks like that? That this needs to be something the entire country has to get itself worked up about.
You
right?
gotta wonder, and it's impossible to measure. The point you're making is such a smart and valuable one. And I guess the next point would be, what's the effect on the country? If you persistently tell people that they're swimming in an ocean of race hate and that everybody is inflamed with bigotry, which is totally a lie, by the way, but if you tell people that, what does it do to how they feel about their neighbors, to how they feel about America?
Well, then they credulously believe things like the statistic. I mean, the Washington Post all sorts of media outlets ran with this a couple months ago that hate crimes had spiked like 226% in counties where Trump hosted a political rally. I looked at that study. Actually, if you kind of control for population size in counties, tends to be that Trump visited counties that had more people in them. So of course there's more hate crimes. The statistical correlation drops to zero. There was just as much of a hate crime increase in counties Hillary Clinton visited because again they're just bigger counties. So, but this was a headline that every major media outlet ran with based on this completely flawed study. And of course people are believing it. Bernie Sanders' campaign put it out. Ilhan Omar talked about it. And there are probably tons of people in the country who believe that. And just like you said, believe that about their neighbors, their relatives, the people they work with. And we should not be driving people to hate each other. People can find reasons to hate each other.
That's right.
And we don't want that to happen. We want people to get along. But we shouldn't be adding fuel to the fire when there's nothing or when it's much less than what it is actually being claimed.
Well, especially not on ethnic grounds, because that's not resolvable. If I'm mad at you because we disagree on something, maybe we'll agree someday. But if I'm mad at you because of something you can't control, that's never going to get better. So it's very reckless to do this.
And there is real racism in our country, but I think a lot of people end up not believing that there is because of this stuff every time. It blows up, it backfires. It's like a boy who cried wolf problem.
That's for sure. Robbie, thank you.
My pleasure.